Essendon winning their first flag since 1965.
This is Cyrus Sarah to win the game, and Essendon the premiers for 1985, winning 2 in a row.
Away goes Michael Long. Oh, what play! It may have been touched on the line. No! Zaharakis has kicked a goal. The Bombers are in front of the G.
To Watson, who emerges with the football. Some icing on the cake. Oh, what a finish!
Well, it's a warm welcome to the Essendon community. In fact, a warm welcome to everyone to a very special presentation from the Essendon Football Club. This is working through it for all Bomber fans to stick together as a big family through what is obviously a very challenging time for all of us. I'm Adam White, but I'm only here to guide you through. Let's get straight to the people that are going to be involved in this podcast. And there's a couple of people that I know a lot of people are very, very keen to talk to and to listen to in, as I said, a very challenging time. But let's start with the CEO of the Essendon Football Club, Xavier Campbell, who I think he's at work in his office. As I officially welcome you in, Xavier, thank you very much for being part of it.
Thanks for having me, Whitey. It's great to be here.
Now, explain exactly what this is all about, because I know it's something that you're very passionate about, and so are our next two co-hosts that we'll get to shortly. But explain a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it's something, Whitey, it's a little bit unconventional, I guess, for the CEO to be involved in something like this. But it was, we're in an unprecedented time, and obviously it's a pretty challenging landscape we're all in. It's challenging for our fans, challenging for the club. There was at a point probably 2.5 weeks ago where I think the AFL announced it was going to be a reduced season and we weren't going to have crowds for a long period of time, which was pretty dramatic, obviously, for everyone. And in a really short period of time, I had a text from Reid, text from Jobe, sort of saying, if there's anything we can do, let us know. And we followed up. The three of us had a couple of calls over the next week, and we sort of discussed, well, what is it the fans are going to be missing? What is it we can try and help with? And ultimately, we came up with this concept, a podcast, that's all about trying to provide a greater connection from the fans to the club and the clubs to the club to the fans during, what's a really challenging period for a lot of people. So it's in part, how can we help? And in part, hopefully, bringing people out of what is their current reality into an opportunity to connect with the club and have a laugh and have a smile.
Well, we've got a couple of guests to get to shortly, and also a chance for you to get involved that are listening to this afternoon as well and chat to, well, what really is Essendon royalty. And we'll start with James Hird. Now, we know that Xavier's at work. I think Hirdy's at home. James, welcome in.
Thanks, Whitey. Yes, self-isolating like everyone else in the community, but looking forward to talking to a lot of Essendon supporters about their experiences and also bringing the Essendon community together and hopefully sharing some stories, but also some goodwill. We've got some programs lined up somewhere during the show where allowing Essendon supporters to help those in need or help other Essendon supporters and really bring that community together while also having a bit of a laugh. Jobe and I are committed to asking Xavier the hard questions. So any members out there that want to put it on Xavier, we're definitely committed to doing it and looking forward to it.
Looking forward to that, and I'm very impressed with your book case behind you as well. Lots of very good books that I can see from where I am.
Yeah, haven't read one of them.
Jobe Watson, former captain of the footy club, and I know a real fan favourite. Jobe, as I welcome you in, I want you to take it over from here and have a chat. Welcome.
Thanks, Whitey. Thank you for having me. I am really excited to be part of it, and I know Hirdy and I have been chatting about it, and one of the great things about being, doing this podcast and being in self-isolation and separate from each other is there's enough room for Xavier's ego to be on the show as well. So we'll be able to get through plenty of content, and because we're no longer affiliated with the club, we can ask whatever we like, and hopefully people enjoy how things go. So I guess I suppose it'd be worth asking, each other how is life, for you, Xavier, at the moment in self-isolation. The club is, barely operating, but still going, and there's a lot of work for you to do. So, what is day-to-day looking like for you?
Well, thanks, Joe. Before we go on to that, we obviously agreed that you two have been ganging up, and I know you've been speaking all week about what you're going to do and you're going to try and target me. That's why we got Whitey involved, because it was always we need an impartial host, but the whole point was to go after the host, not after me. But thanks for not agreeing to that. No, it's such a unique period, isn't it? Like I'm sort of working from home most of the time. It was a bit challenging today. I've got two young children, 6 and 3, Freddie and Francesca, and they have this amazing ability to find me anywhere in the house, no matter where I am, and it makes it difficult to, when you're on calls for 3/4 of the day, it's sort of difficult to try and focus and concentrate. I'm sure a lot of people would understand that. I'm sure they're experiencing something similar. So I'm sort of balancing home, work. There's a lot of discussions that are happening, some serious discussions, obviously, and I don't want to sort of make light of that. It's been a really challenging 2.5 weeks, but it's a very unique period, and we're working through it, I guess.
Xavier, I think the biggest question that all Essendon supporters want to know, and you have more information than anyone else, the best of your information. When do you think we'll see the Essendon Football Club kicking the ball around against another team, and who do you think that would be? Are we going back to round 2 as it was, or does that all have to change again?
I feel pretty confident, Jim, that we're going to have a season. Like I do feel, and I'm becoming increasingly confident based on different insights from the AFL and others. But in terms of when, it's really challenging to give a clear timeline on that because so much of it's out of the AFL's control, and clearly we want to make sure we work really close with the government on those sorts of things. But even these concepts like the hub and what would that mean in terms of how the season will be delivered, that was news to me a couple of days ago when that came out in the media, and we've since had a high level briefing on that as a concept. So it's really hard to say it's going to go one way or another. And how
David, we spoke at the start of the show. There was no fence sitting. And you have sat right in the middle of that fence. This is the Essendon supporters, the Essendon community. They want an answer. They don't want the stuff you're giving the newspapers. They're giving give us an answer. When, to the best of your knowledge, do you think we'll play football again?
I feel relatively confident that in July we'll be back playing football at the latest.
Okay.
But I don't say that with any great insight or as an educated insight. But I feel confident now. It's not going to be in front of crowds, obviously. That's going to be a really challenging aspect, particularly for our members and for our players who thrive off that. But hopefully it's not too far after that. Again, you can't hold me to it because we just don't know because it's out of our control. But I feel relatively confident on that.
Hurdy, what's day-to-day sort of life like for you in self-isolation at the moment? I know you've got 4 children. Are all 4 kids at home?
They're all at home. So Stephanie, our eldest, is 20, and she was in Paris studying, doing her university degree. So I was in New York, she was in Paris. So we rushed home when Scott Morrison announced that the new isolation rules. We missed isolation by 2 days, so we had to go and self-isolate for 14 days in a house away from the rest of the family, which we did and did quite well and followed the rules. And then we've come back to the family environment with the 4 kids, and it's great family time. There's some huge positives about it. It's fair to say that the 20-year-old and the 18-year-old are finding fault with each other at certain times, like in any household. But to us, it's been enjoyable at the moment. But the novelty, I'm sure, will wear off in every family soon. But what I'm seeing from the community is a great appetite to try and do the right thing. There's obviously people who aren't, but it's certainly different when you're holding a video conferencing meeting and your 16-year-old son walks past with these jukebox playing some New York rapper coming out, blaring out a fair few swear words. So there's a fair bit of apology that's had to happen. But I've been wondering, Jobe, and I understand that Xavier is a very professional guy and pretty understanding. But when you were at the club, you were like a bear with a sore tooth if we kept you there for more than 30 seconds longer than you should have been. How are you handling isolation? Because I reckon there's a few grumpy moments in the Watson household.
Well, it's funny you should ask, James. So Virginia, obviously, she was FaceTiming some friends in New York who are there, and they're in complete lockdown. And Obviously, doing it very difficult, and job security and things like that is very tough for them. And these are one of her friends is single by herself, and she's really lonely. And Virginia's just sort of said to me, "Look, imagine how difficult it is for Kristen," and I just keep offering my services if she'd like to swap positions, and I'll go over to New York in self-isolation, and she can come and stay here with Virginia and Juniper. We are having. I'm actually really enjoying my time with spending time with Juniper and bonding with her, and we built a bike for her on Sunday, which almost was the end of the relationship between the two of us. And now Juniper refuses to get off the bike, so she won't eat dinner in her chair anymore. She won't. She sits in the bike all day, waiting for me to take her for a walk outside. So,
I've enjoyed those moments. You're only allowed an hour a day, don't you? I've seen you out for 6 walks on the bike. It seems every moment you're out walking that bike on Instagram. Or it's an hour a day, Joe.
I started isolation with a bulldog, and now I've got a greyhound. That's how much walking do.
How is fatherhood, Joe? How are you finding it?
No, I do really enjoy it. I do love it. I remember Mum said to me after Juniper was born that it would be the most rewarding and most difficult thing you'll ever do in your life, and it's right. Like it is. It fills you with more joy than you possibly imagine you could ever have, and it challenges you as well. But I think that for every family at the moment, or for anyone with children, it's obviously very extenuating circumstances, and there's no a real precedence for it, and the stress and anxiety that people are feeling, and then coupling that with, the idea of having to homeschool potentially kids and doing all those sorts of things and all these different dynamics. So it is a really difficult time for everyone, but the whole point of it is to find a way to get through and to prosper out of it, and the things that you can learn about yourself, and what you can take out of this period will actually can be used in a positive way when we all get through it.
There's a couple of things. Well said, Joe. There's a couple of things that I'm regretting about this self-isolation. Firstly, is the homeschooling. Grammar is not my specialty, and I spent half an hour trying to teach my son the differences between there and there. And was finally told by him that I was wrong and he was right, and he's 11. So that was firstly a come to earth on the homeschooling. But this all this Fox Sports and Channel 7 replaying of games. I don't know if you've been watching any of the replaying of games, but I keep telling my kids how good I was, right? But, how many goals, this or that. There was a game on TV, I think last Sunday, Essendon Carlton, round 293. Which my 11-year-old was watching, and he piped. I said, "Dad, you haven't touched the ball for 30 minutes. You haven't had a kick." I said, "Keep watching." Anyway, it's basically it's ruining what I thought of myself as a player, because my kids are calling me out. So anyway, if Channel 7 and Fox could stop showing Essendon games, we'd be much appreciated.
Speaking of
probably
family,
worthwhile also. Chat,
you
Herdy. Well, maybe just for people just to get and understand what you guys are up to now. It's sort of not something that's necessarily been out in the public domain, and you're both keeping busy. Obviously, I chat to you both quite often, but maybe just for the listeners, it'd be good to hear that for them.
You go first, Joe.
Yeah, so I've got a property business here in Melbourne, which is in Folio Property Advisor. So it's buying and rent rolls. So we manage property and then buy for investors and owner-occupiers. So seeing firsthand, the flow-on effect of what theoretically is almost an economic shutdown, and what that means for people, and running a small business and trying to keep people employed and to keep working and things like that. So you get an understanding about what it's like for people in small business, trying to keep people employed, keep people working so that everyone can get through it together. And I think you realise in these circumstances that it's, you're so connected, everyone's so reliant on each other, and that's it's really important that everyone can get through it, and that you can keep people employed and keep people working, so that we can all manage our way through this and then come out of it the other side. And then obviously the stuff in New York's completely shut down. I mean, it is just it's a pretty different system over there. It's there's no real clarity on what's going to happen with rentals and things like that. But the cafes have shut. We've had to let all our staff go and just batten down and hope that we can find a way to get through it. And I guess that's what it's like for a lot of people at this stage.
Yeah, and similar to Jobe, I've got a number of investments in small to medium-sized businesses, and some are in the sports entertainment industry. There's one over in New York in the finance industry, and yeah, it's a matter of just trying to hold on to people's jobs at the moment. You see a lot of young entrepreneurs in the startups or wannabe entrepreneurs in startups trying to make a way, and to me, it's part of the great economy in Australia and also in the US. You have these young entrepreneurs employing people, but something like this is just crippling that industry. And I think we are fortunate that the government has stepped in with that $1,500 wage subsidy for a certain amount of JobKeeper, and then in New York in the US there's a PPP similar type scenario for employees in the US, and what that's doing is enabling a number of businesses to hold on, but by no means is it the full wage. And I think for any small business owner or sole trader or shopkeeper, our hearts go out to every one of them, because it is tough, and you're just trying to hang on financially, yes, but also for your own self-worth. I think that when your business is in trouble, a lot of your identity is caught up in that. And, that's where, hopefully this show, we can talk about things like that. We can get listeners to give their experiences. We can try and help, and, because it is very lonely when you're watching all your hard-earned work go down the toilet. So that's partly what this show's here for.
Yeah, absolutely. And then sort of the other thing is going to come from it is that the way we do business, the way we live our lives is going to change probably forever. We were speaking yesterday, the three of us, about what the footy landscape looks like beyond this year, and it's going to be significant changes that we have to prepare and embrace, I guess. But it's going to be tough for everyone.
And Xavier, you might not be able to give, just bringing it back to football, you might not be able to give the exact number or roundabout numbers, but one of the things that we were very conscious of during the coaching days was the soft cap and how much you could spend around not the football players, because that's your salary cap and that will probably come down, but you've got this whole football industry, and particularly the football administration side of things, which the soft cap, I'm not sure what it is, but it will be significantly reduced. So you're going to lose some good people out of football forever because of this, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who don't know, the soft cap's about $9.7 million you can spend in the football department now, non-players spend in the football department. That's going to come down to at least $6.7 million. So, and the challenge with that is it's not through poor performance, it's not through passion or application of staff, it's just through a real squeeze on the expense base of our football program, which is going to be challenging. It's times 18 clubs. It's really confronting. So, clubs of all, we've had to make, really hard decisions in the last couple of weeks around, firstly, standing down staff, secondly, making some staff redundant and who are really good people who have given their all for the football club for a really long period of time, because you can see what's coming, and unfortunately we don't have a choice. And that's a lot of businesses, a lot of business managers are faced with this landscape and these sorts of decisions at the moment. It doesn't make it easier, and it's certainly not something you enjoy going through. But obviously, the best interest of the football club, we've got to push through. We've got to make these harder decisions to ensure we can come through the other side. But it's pretty challenging. There's no doubt about that.
And Joe, without getting too into the detail, there's a lot of workers at home who one day they were working through no fault of their own, haven't got a job. Not only is there financial implication, what do they do with their days? You guys, a lot of you were faced that situation in 2016 where one day you were training, the next day you were told you can't come to work for a year. How tough is that mentally to get into a routine and understand how you spend the next 12 months or 3 months or however months of your life it's going to be without work?
Yeah, I remember thinking back, immediately, it was just such an empty feeling because you used to your routine, you used to what your identity is and associating that with your work. And it makes a huge difference to your life and self-worth and how you're thinking about yourself. And then for that to evaporate overnight, which was, the case for us as well, it left you with I remember feeling incredibly anxious about it and just that feeling of unknown and being scared about what was going to be there and what was how I was going to deal with it. And I remember it took me about a week, and after about a week I sat down one night down at the farm and I wrote down a list of the things that I wanted to do or the person that I wanted to become out of this. And it really was like my template for the year, and the decisions that I made for that year were based off that, and being able to tick those things off on the list. When I looked back at the 12 months afterwards, I looked back at the list that I created and all the things that I wanted or the person that I wanted to become, I'd been able to achieve it. And that really helped me. And I know it's really difficult when the whole world is in the same situation, but I think back on that time and thinking about, okay, well, what can I achieve? How can I be different? How can I be better? How can I innovate myself? How can I come out of this as a better person? And it was the map, I suppose, for me being able to change the direction of my life, and it was really a worthwhile experience to go through.
And there must have been tough times, though. I mean, you look in hindsight, and we all talk about the template and how you work through things, but for people going through it, it's okay to have bad days, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I remember feeling sick, not wanting to leave the house and having no sort of idea about what I was going to do, and just feeling like that I would never come through it, and it would never end. And I think that's a very normal experience for people to be going through, and that fear and that uncertainty it can be really crippling. And I think that the ability to talk through how you're feeling with people and connecting, and that's one of the things that I've found even through this period is the amount of effort that you make to connect with people, and you're calling your friends that perhaps you were too busy to make an effort, to call or to speak to, and you actually feel better connecting because everyone's going through the same thing, and you can lean on each other, and people are suffering in different degrees, but everyone is finding it difficult, and I think that's the ability to reach out to other people and to connect is going to help everyone get through it.
Routine, guys. I think routine seems to be pretty important through this period. And Xavier, you're lucky with the job to go to, get out of the house, have that routine. But I think for people who literally are stuck at home, and particularly the elderly, who people over 70 who are told to stay in the house, as you said, Jobe, connecting with them, giving them a call, but also if you're in that situation, just some sort of routine that gives you a basis to work through during the day.
That's a good point.
I think so.
You go, Joe.
Xavier, I don't know about you, but like getting up and having some form of exercise, or getting starting your day and then having it, I guess, follow some sort of normality to whether this is the time that I'm working. I know it's not my normal hours, and I'm not doing things, but I think it is really important to have that routine and to be able to continue on, even though there is obviously changes to everyone's days.
Guys, fascinating insights, particularly from you, Joe. But let's get an insight now from the footy club, from someone in the footy department. And I speak of the head of strength and conditioning at Essendon, Sean Murphy. He's been listening to you, Jobe, James and Xavier. For those that are just tuning in to us on the Essendon website, essendonfc.com.au, this is Working Through It. And we're going to take your calls shortly, so get ready for that. But welcome to the program, Sean. You're talking to Jobe, James and Xavier.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us on board.
Murph, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it, mate. I know you got a lot on. Obviously, for those that don't know, Murph joined us from the Hawthorn Football Club at the start of this season as our high-performance manager, and he's made a real impact, a really positive impact, and very popular amongst the players. Has taken them certainly with their loads, and their output has increased dramatically. And I feel for you, mate. I know it's difficult to have started the season and know that there's some reward for the work that you guys have done, and for it to sort of stop after a week. But it would be great, obviously with Jim and Jobe, we've got a lot of questions you're going to ask, but it'd be great for you to sort of talk about the uniqueness of the current situation and how you're managing the players based on the parameters you've got to work within right now.
Yeah, no worries at all. Really nice to hear James and Joe talk about sort of that period where they had off, and you talk about that routine. It's funny, I've been talking to my wife about that, and I think the biggest change in routine has actually been me being at home, which she's struggling with. She's not used to having me in the household and taking up space. So, one thing that we've actually been doing is having open conversation around that. If you need space, take it. And it's okay to go for a walk for an hour without me and the kids. So, we would talk to the players about that, trying to keep that routine, sleep, eating, exercise, having a purpose for your day. So, really important to have that in their life. And same for us as staff and trying to help the players as well. In terms of the uniqueness of the period, yes, certainly challenging. I thought we had a really good pre-season. We all say that at this time of year or the back end of pre-season, but just the openness and the way that the players took it on board. Not only that, but probably the coaching staff. I was surprised at how receptive they were to, I guess, our new ideas from the football department. And we threw a lot at the playing group, a lot at the staff, and I just felt like they lapped it up really well. And so, yeah, it is a bit frustrating in my eyes that we get to this period now and we can't see the rewards from that. We got to see a little bit in the pre-season games and then obviously round one, even though unique circumstances with a shortened game period and everything else. But then, now we've got programs to put out. We put a 4-week block out sort of when it all happened after that round one. Even there, we didn't even get to see the guys on the Monday after that game, so we didn't really get to do a proper check-in post that game, so that was quite unique. And then we have been in contact via either FaceTime or some sort of a online platform or just phone calls and then just emails sending out their program. But we opted with a 4-week period, knowing that up until the 26th of April, that'll then give us a bit more of insight of what the next phase will look like, which we're all predicting that, as Xavier was talking about there, that we're not back maybe until July playing some footy. So what that looked like from a training perspective, it sort of didn't need to flog them in this period.
And Sean, so really interesting to understand how you write a program without knowing when they're going to come back, without knowing when they're going to play again, and what you're trying to achieve out of the program you're giving them. Is it just a general maintenance program so that if they come back that you can start some sort of legitimate training, or how do you I suppose target that program?
Yeah, I think nail on the head there in terms of just trying to maintain. In my honest opinion, it's more about their sort of routine and having some mental health. So actually exercising, trying to go for a walk. I was chatting to one of the players today, and he's got himself into a really good routine. He gets up in the morning and just goes for a walk and listens to a podcast. For me, that's a win because he's actually keeping to some sort of normality in his life. And then the exercise on it is just, even if they're not doing my exact program, if they're doing an element of it, they're in contact with us around that, which is good. And I'm pretty receptive to that. If they're doing if they want to go for a 20-minute run versus doing sort of a fartlek type session, that's okay because it gives them a bit of choice and a bit of control over that as well. But yeah, certainly a maintenance program over this phase. And then as we get closer to that block where we're probably going to have to, maybe a 4-week block before we actually start playing games again, that's where we can start to sort of gear it up a little bit more. Over this 4-week block, to give you insight, I've given them 2 sessions out of those 4 weeks, which is almost game load. And that was more to challenge them physically, but also a little bit of mental challenge as well to see if they can do some footy stuff in there as well.
Yeah, Jose Mourinho was caught in the park training 3 of his players overnight. Are you guys allowed any contact with your players, or it just totally has to be done by Zoom and phone calls?
Yeah, predominantly by Zoom and phone calls, and also a little bit of. I'd prefer not to have to see the players all the time. We want to give trust to these guys. They, when they're in the club, their lives are to the letter every minute. It's nice to be able to sort of, okay, you guys, it's in your hands to go and execute this. I think that gives a bit of freedom to the program if they do it at 9 or 10 or 11 o'clock, then they can structure their day up. In terms of what we're allowed to have contact, yeah, we're meant to have minimal contact with the players face-to-face. we can have one-on-one FaceTime if they're needed. So with our physios, so someone like a Paddy Ambrose, who we need to make sure that he actually returns to play at a certain level, and certainly when he gets back running, which he started now, it's really important that he's actually getting FaceTime with our physios, but that has to be in a controlled setting and in the clinic. We can't just have a group of them go down to the park, and we've made sure through our football department, we've all sort of agreed to it. I know across the league we have, that there's no advantage in doing that. It's also for the society as well. So we don't feel like we need to do that.
And so, Sean, in terms of what would you be looking at as major concern area with trying to get maintenance for these players, but then have them almost within a month get ready to play again? Like, is that the area that you're thinking, okay, well, this is going to be the biggest challenge, is going from a maintenance phase to then, in a really short period of time, getting guys ready to perform at the elite level and start playing AFL games?
Yeah, spot on. The bit that will be the most challenging part, and it always is during an off-season. This is obviously hopefully going to be a shortened period, but who knows how long that'll end up being. But your change of direction and your speed is the bit that is probably the hardest to control or to actually replicate from the game. So that ability to accelerate and decelerate in the game is sort of very hard to replicate by yourself, or if you're just training in pairs, it's even hard to replicate that. And then just that hitting maximal speed. So, you'll see the guys in games, they'll be able to hit speed because they've been in training and up to that. Sometimes it's actually hard to motivate to get yourself to hit that speed from a soft tissue point of view. So the strength side of it's another part. We had just about every single player take some part of the equipment from the gym at the club. Once we heard...
You won't see any of that back, Xavier. That'll be gone.
Big CapEx investment, that one.
I had a bit of a feeling that would happen. So we actually took down a stock take of every single piece of equipment. We wrote their name on that piece of equipment. Now, that's not to say we don't trust them, but we just felt like with the current economic times, we might actually not get that equipment back, and we might not be able to buy any more equipment once this all comes through. So we loaned all that out. So Des O'Sullivan, who's the head strength guy, and myself went in there and pretty much made a pack for every single player. We either it was weight plates, and we prioritised the guys that need to put weight on or keep weight on. We gave them a heap of dumbbells or weight plates and a bench and barbells. And I've actually got all the boys actually sent me through a photo or a little video of what their home setups were, which was quite amusing to see how they'd actually use their space. So, and that's the other side from, returning to training. We've got to be very careful that when we get back, we don't sort of go from squatting a 40-kilo dumbbell, because that's all they had, to then squatting 100 to 120 kilos, because you're just going to get issues from a DOM perspective, and you're not going to be able to train what we need on the track. So there's going to be a real fine line from that when we do return, knowing what they've done and then what we need to do to play games.
Murph, I was reading one of the memos from the AFL late last week about sort of that timeline that the guys will be able to get back and then train for that period. And what do you see that minimum period being before players can then literally get back and play?
I think the further we go on, the little bit more time we'll actually need. We had a bit of a discussion about this the other day as a football department, and I think at the moment in the current landscape, 4 weeks would be a good timeline. Now, whether that's 4 weeks with then the game, so it's 3 weeks of prep, a week of sort of consolidating before the round 2 game, or whether it's 4 weeks and then a week. I feel like around that timeline seems to be about right. And the further we go into this, if it ends up being sort of a 12-week period, I feel like we're going to need a little bit more time. And again, it's just that ability to know what they've done in that time, that they've been training by themselves. I feel like sometimes you have been training to a high level, but as we know, if you're training in small groups, you get a little bit more out of it.
Sean, just a question around, it's probably for you and Xavier, but there's all this talk about the hub, about, an MCG precinct for games. How practically, there's a player point of view and their families, practically, from your perspective, is that an option, or is that more a pipe dream that the media and we'd all like to see to get football back quicker?
I don't think there's anything off the top. You go, Murph, and I'll after a discussion yesterday with the AFL, I can sort of give another update on that. You go, Murph.
Yeah, it's probably more for Xavier because it's the first I've actually heard of it was in the day or two ago via the media. Like, hasn't been any discussions that we've had as a football department. Certainly I haven't even given much thought to that and how that would look. So I'd have to give it more thought process going forward. But I can see what they're trying to do. I think it'd be very challenging from a training perspective and the grounds maintenance and all that side of it. But it's probably more one for Xavier to answer.
I think it's just still a very preliminary stage of exploration, really. You can sort of see every sport around the world that hasn't quite got their season away or is part way through. It's exploring all the options they can in this space. I think I read last night the UFC are looking at a private island somewhere to try and host some of their events. But I'd say from a discussion with the AFL yesterday, it's still really preliminary. There's a whole range of factors, just like anything in this, like in an issue like this, as complex as it is. Every time you start to plan something out, there's something you haven't thought of at every different juncture, which makes it really complex. And I think that's probably what the AFL's going through that now. And it's a process that you think might take a week to consider it properly will take a lot longer than that because of the nuances that exist in trying to deliver something so unique. So I think they're trying really hard to just create options. As simple as that. Where we get to with it, I'm not entirely sure, but we'll find out hopefully by sometime by the end of April. I think we'll have a clear idea on what those options might be.
I mean, it's Xavier. It's more about the, like education of the supporters and the fans that we're going to try and get a product out there and play. It might not be the product that you used to, but these are the circumstances that we've had to prepare, and these are the circumstances that our players are getting ready for and our clubs are utilising, and this is what we can do. It might not be the footy that you remember and that you know, but this is the product that we can actually produce for you to be able to have something to be connected with. It just might not be the footy that you remember from 2019.
Yeah, I think that's right, Jobe. I think that's right. I was just thinking that. I was chatting to Claire, my wife, about it last night, and we were sort of saying our perspective on valuing the smaller things in our life now, after all of this, will be so much more significant because it's so much has been taken away from everyone the way they live their normal lives. But it'll be interesting if football comes back in a couple of months or 10 weeks, whatever it is. I mean, I think you're right. It is going to look a bit different, but it was hard watching round one without crowds, wasn't it? Like, because crowds are such an important, your members are such an important part about the match day experience. But the football and the pure element of the football will be something I think we're all going to really appreciate when it comes back, because it will be such a big hiatus, big delay, and I think we're all looking forward to that.
Sean, I just want to ask you one last question, not related to the environment at the moment, but I've always been in the belief that your fitness coaches need time with a group to put their stamp of approval on and put their style on, and you can't just come in 1 year and turn it all around. If you look at Richmond, Collingwood, West Coast, they've had the same programs for quite a while. How long do you think you need to get this current Essendon squad up to the physical capabilities that can compete with the best under your program?
Good question. I've been in this time has actually allowed me to stop for a little bit and actually reflect on our pre-season. And the one thing that I've been able to reflect on and actually looking at the numbers, there's one thing this group has done. They train bloody hard, and they sort of went almost too hard, if that makes sense. So they had an appetite to go at, just bull at a gate, but they couldn't control themselves. And I think the good teams like Richmond, like Collingwood, like the time through that I was at Hawthorn, these teams that can actually know when to go and know when to just pull back a little bit and control themselves are the teams that actually play their footy the same way, but also can train the same way, that they know how to actually get the best out of their bodies. So in reflection, it's actually been a really positive from the group, because it's actually trying to teach them the other way, that there's times where we don't want to go, if it's an aerobic session or if it's a session where we just want to consolidate a little bit because we've got another session coming up, we've got to be able to pull back. And I noticed that probably 3 or 4 times throughout pre-season this year, they just couldn't hold back. They went sort of bull at a gate. So that's my biggest challenge, and I think that has come into effect. From a physical point of view, I feel like we're in a pretty good space. We had a challenging time, when we first inherited this group, the injuries that we had. We had a fair few surgeries over the off season, which was needed and required. But I feel like we got the group back to about 85% of the group training altogether, which was pretty solid, and that was sort of the foundation that we needed going forward. And this little block now changes that a little bit. But I would put down probably I need a 2 to 3 year period where you actually get that consistency of their training, and not just the consistency of games, but also the way that we do our pre-season blocks. We've got a fair bit more into their bodies this year from running loads, but also from a footy perspective, it's probably been ramped up a little bit as well. So that'll take a bit of time to then be adapted to that and being able to actually do more of those sessions repeatedly across time. So I'd probably say a 2 to 3 year period. Hopefully we'll start to see the benefits of those sessions.
Sean, thanks very much for being part of the first edition of Working Through It.
Thanks,
and we'll catch up with you again soon.
No worries, my pleasure.
Sean Murphy joining us there, Head of High Performance at the Essendon Football Club. Now it's your turn. 1300 652 927. If you want to have a chat to either Xavier Campbell, James Hird or Jobe Watson, it's your chance. So get on the line. 1300 652 927.
Betts somehow emerges. Little toe poke to his own advantage. Kick in behind the defence. Taken by Garland. Can he outrun Fletcher? No, sirree!
Dustin Fletcher and that game-saving tackle against Jeffy Garlett from Carlton a few years ago now. Now, Coles, Xavier, one of the key sponsors of the Essendon Football Club, the official supermarket partner, and also you'll see Coles on the shorts of the Essendon players this year, but they're a new supporter and an important supporter of the club.
Yeah, a great partner of the football club. They're across so many aspects of our football club, a lot of our community programs, our Tiwi partnership up in the Northern Territory, but they are providing us with some vouchers to help support some of our members who are finding it tough or who are isolated or who are independent and don't have a great deal of support at the moment, finding it difficult to work within the parameters of the government social distancing piece, and we're pretty keen to try and help them where we can, as Hirdy sort of mentioned before.
Well, what we're going to do is that if you're a really good caller, and Hirdy and Jobe think that they're a really, really good caller, we are actually giving away some vouchers valued at $150 thanks to Coles, and particularly for Bomber fans that are out there experiencing hardship or just the struggles of what life is like at the moment. Hopefully the footy club will be able to help you out. So 1300 652 927 is the number to get in touch, and Angie from Sandringham has done just that. Angie, thanks for holding on.
Hello.
Go for it. Have a chat to the guys.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to ring in to say how great it is that you are doing this. It's really awesome that we can ring in and talk to you as well. So thank you so much. I just also wanted to say thanks to Hirdy and Jobe for coming back to help out the fans during this really tough time. I know we're all really missing our footy, so to be able to listen to this is really good. Hirdy, I loved your podcast with Crawford, so I'm really missing that one too.
Thanks, Angie. Well, it's interesting that you talk about Crawford, because I spoke to him yesterday just to let him know that I was doing this and I wasn't going behind his back. And he actually wants to come on. So he's actually asked if he can come on next week and be part of the Essendon podcast, which I think we should let him on. So thank you, Angie, for bringing him up. He'll be very happy.
Oh, that's good. I just got a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Go for it.
It's to all of you. I was just wondering, how do you think COVID-19 is going to change our footy club?
Well, I think it's going to have a big impact on how we structure our football club, in terms of how we structure administration, our football department. In terms of how I don't think it's going to change how we interact with our fans, clearly. If anything, we hopefully become more nimble and more efficient, and there's more opportunities to do more with the fans, particularly behind the scenes, and such a big focus on our content and what we're doing there, which we're really, this is a good example of that, we're really keen to push. But, at the end of the day, we're a footy club, and we can be a footy club with 50 people, we can be a footy club with 10 people. I mean, it gets us back, strips back the bones a little bit, gets us back to what we're all about, which is the fans and the players and the football itself. So it'll be structurally a lot different, Angie, but it will still be the Bombers. Will still be everything you knew we were before, and we'll still be striving to win our next premiership. Like that's how it sits, and that's we were sitting there as a board and executive over the last week and a half, and we sort of similar to what we did in 2016 when players were suspended. We identified the 6 key themes that for the short term, for the next 6 to 12 months, we wanted to focus on the football club to rebuild and hopefully bounce out of this. And a big part about that is obviously our members, how we interact, our commercial revenues, all those sorts of things, our community footprint. A big part about that is not taking our eye off the ball when it comes to winning our 17th premiership. That's got to be a focus that we don't lose any ground on. And I think we've been making really good ground on it. And Sean Murphy and the work that he's been doing with the group's been a really good example of that. But we have to use this as an opportunity to try and make up ground as well.
Yeah, I think everyone's
Angie,
taking stock at the moment.
Can I ask you a question, Angie? How are you handling, as an Essendon supporter, what do you do for a job and how are you handling this period in your life?
I'm a teacher, so it's a big change for us getting our head around how to teach remotely. So that's been my holidays, working out how I can do that. And the footy for all of us is a big thing. We all really look forward to it. I actually went and bought the grand final DVDs and we've been watching those. Mum actually had her eyes shut for the last quarter of the 84 grand final because she wasn't sure we were going to get up.
So can I ask you another question then, Angie? Yep. Can I ask you another question? Sorry to keep butting in, but what is the greatest game that you've seen as an Essendon supporter? Is it the 84 grand final?
Yeah, that was a good one. I liked the one against West Coast when we came back. That was a great one. I hated the prelim 99 final. That wasn't good. And my husband said he'd divorce me if I kept talking about that one.
I think you've jumped on a good theme, Angie, because what we'd like people to call in to do would actually to nominate the best game they've ever seen. So, I'm not sure your age. So what we'd like people to call in is give their story. Tell us how you're handling isolation. Tell us what you're doing. Is there someone that we can help with these food packages? And then also, what's your favourite game? Because we'd like to get a compilation at the end of this show, and in a few weeks' time, and maybe get a bit of a vote going of what the best game in the history of Essendon is.
Thanks very much for your call, Angie. We appreciate it. We'll get to as many as we can here in this little window we have. I know a lot of people are trying to get through on 1300 652 927. Ken from Elwood has done just that. Ken, you're through to Xavier, James, and also Jobe.
Good afternoon, gents. Nice to talk to you all. And like the others, I'd like to say congratulations on getting this together. It's a great platform for Essendon supporters to get on board and talk to you guys. So I've got a bit of a footy question, more about the club and in particular a player. Our big man stocks, Tom Bell-Chambers has been doing a pretty good job the last couple of years, but I wanted to get a handle on how Sam Draper's going and other big men at Bomberland. And my favourite game, actually, James, is the one where you bagged the umpire when we played West Coast and you played a blinder. That was my favourite game.
I don't remember the bagging of the umpire. I remember the West Coast game, but it was a silly thing to do and the wrong thing to do. So anyway, I got my
good result, man.
Good result in the West Coast game. Yeah, look, I'm not sure about the ruck. I think Xavier will have to answer that. But just, Ken, while we've got you, is there anyone in your community or in your local area that you think could do with either Jobe or I dropping off a food package to in the next few days?
Not particularly. I think most of the people around where I am are going okay. I think there'd be some other people in other, that might be in a position where they might need it more. I think it's a great gesture by Coles and you guys, but I think from where I sit, I think most of the people are okay on that front, and I think it'd be best to put it somewhere else that might be more worthwhile.
Well said, Ken. Xavier, can you tell us about the ruck stocks?
Yeah, obviously, with Tommy's being fantastic for us, Andrew Phillips comes in to give him a backup this year, which is important because obviously Sammy's still coming off his knee, and we expect Sammy to be back and firing well, probably about April. It was about April, May, early May. It was going to be when he comes back, and he's obviously now, with all the landscape shifting now, he's going to be back and ready to go when play resumes. So, and Sammy's he's a real talent. He's a great clubman, but he's going to have some real talent. And it's been great to watch his development over the last couple of years, in particular the last 12 months. So. It's something that Adrian and the team are thinking of when we sit down in the war room and go through the list strategy and the key priorities. Continuing to focus on that ruck piece is particularly important for Adrian and his group. So, very much top of mind. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, thanks for your call, Ken. Scott from Heathmont's given us a call as well on 1300 652 927. Scott, good afternoon.
Hey, good to talk to you guys. A real privilege. Love that you guys have put this together. So I wanted to ask probably James and Jobe, just looking at this is more current sort of team kind of situation, looking at our current sort of player demographic, we've probably got between the ages of 24 and 31 sort of 6 kind of All-Australians, and then we've got like a good young crop coming together with McGrath, Parrish, Redmond, Francis, sort of all been in the system 3-4 years. So you kind of sense as a fan at the playing age group is actually at a really good demographic to start getting some success. But in all honesty, we've probably had sort of a few years of just sort of been around that 10-7 mark. And I wanted to kind of just ask, how hard is it to get to that kind of 10-7 mark to that suddenly that 4-1 mark? And what's kind of the secret ingredients now that we've kind of got a list that is probably threatening a bit?
Yeah, I think it's a tough question because there has been that level of not being able to break through, to go to that next frame of win a final and then go and be in the top 4. And realistically, you need to be in the top 4 to be winning flags. And I think that the improvement always comes from those guys in there. When a team can go to another level, it always comes from guys in their 2nd, 3rd and 4th pre-seasons, and they're able to then really provide the impetus for the rest of the group. You're not going to get a huge amount of improvement from guys who are, like 26 to 30. They're already in their peak range. It's really that lower demographic of players that are going to take you to the next level. And you just got to make sure that the really important players who are in that 26 to 30 are all on the park and they're all firing when these young kids, jump and go that way. And I think what we saw last year towards the end of the season, you saw more consistency from guys like Darcy Parish and Andy McGrath and Mason Redmond and Aaron Francis. And I think that that core was, had the platform from a really hard pre-season to go to the next level and to drive the club forward. And what you want is you just want as many in that cluster as you can get and continually bringing in new talent as well. So you know what you're going to get from, Shield and get Smith back and get Fantasia back, but can that group beneath them in that age bracket, they're the ones that really drive a jump in performance and improvement. And I think there's enough talent in that group to do it. Unfortunately, it's been delayed this year, but there's enough guys that are competent and good AFL players, I think, to drive that next wave.
All right, we might just take a couple more calls. We're running short of time. Time flies when you're having fun. Thanks very much for your call, Scott. We'll get to Simon because he's called in from Newcastle. Simon, you want to have a chat to the guys?
I do, yeah. I when I heard the call out as well in the favourite Essendon game, that just went straight to round 16, 2001.
Against the Kangaroos there, Simon?
Against the Kangaroos, yep, that was it. That was exactly right.
From my memory, Jason Johnson was was immense in that game, particularly after half time. I think Lloydie was sensational.
Yeah.
Who was your best player on the ground in that game? Because it came from we were just getting absolutely smashed in that first quarter.
Yeah, I got home and I got home at the end of the first quarter and couldn't believe the score. But look, Hurdy does come to mind, obviously, as well as Matthew Lloyd. His straight kicking that day was just immense. So that was good. And when you were saying there that you were showing your kids the 1993 game the other day, I've got 3 sons myself, and without blowing too much smoke up your bum, James. I've got all your memorabilia in my study, and they're like, "Where's James Hird? Where is he, Dad?" I said, "Don't worry, I'll show you some more games."
Enough of that, Joe. Come on, you got a bad game too every now and then, haven't you? I just don't know why Channel 7 keeps showing, Fox keeps showing my bad games. But anyway,
I had a couple because my kids were sort of saying the same thing.
Fantastic, Simon. Thanks for your call. We'll quickly go to Ben, who's given us a call from Essendon West. Ben, good afternoon.
Hey, g'day, gents. How are you? And thanks for having me on board. Basically, just wanted to ask Xavier a question. Post-COVID-19, what's your strategy to maintain the balance sheet strength of the football club? And how do we ensure that we're financially right going forward?
good question, Ben.
Yeah.
Don't let him make him answer it too. Nail him.
Well, it's interesting, and James actually is someone that he and I have been speaking about some stuff before all of this sort of happened. I mean, as a football club, obviously there's been a bit of pressure on some of our traditional revenues. You know, where you're starting to max out a lot of your sponsorship, hospitality areas like that, and you have to think differently about how you grow your football club. And there's obviously been some pressure on some of the non-traditional stuff too. Obviously, gaming has been one that's got a lot of public attention. From our perspective, we have a unique position, and we're very determined to maintain this unique position. We have freehold assets at Windy Hill, which we're determined to clearly hold. We have a great parcel of land next door here at Tullamarine, Melbourne Airport, that we've got a first and last option on, and we're really keen to make the most of those two opportunities. We're in the process of negotiating with council around the Windy Hill master plan and what that might look like, and I feel like that's going to set up some really unique opportunities for us as a football club that other clubs might not have. And we're also keen to look at some other non-traditional areas through the support of what is a really amazing corporate and high net worth network to allow us to build revenue streams that can compete with similar to what we get from our gaming venues. So there's been a lot of the assets we're not going to we're determined to push through this issue and not have to sell any assets, and I think we'll be able to get through that through the support of our membership and amazing support of our membership and clearly our high net worth. So the big focus is going to be what commercialisation of those other assets probably looks like, Ben, as well as finding really smart ways to continue to grow and connect with our membership.
Great question, Ben. We'll take more calls next week, and we appreciate your interaction. We've got some text messages and some emails we might read through as well if we get time before the end of the program. But guys, we did want to have a chat to Dr. Bruce Reid, who is so well known at the Essendon Football Club, and I know James and Jobe are very close to Dr. Bruce Reid. So guys, take it away. He's there to talk to.
Reedy, you seem to turn up everywhere, Reedy. I thought we'd avoided you today. We tried to go a bit longer than normal. How did you get on the show?
I'm not sure, but I heard the start when Jobe got stuck into Xavier about his ego, and I was just wondering, talking of egos, Xavier, if the boys had not demanded so much money in the playing days, would we be in a far better position, or it wouldn't have made much difference?
A bit rich coming from that bloke, isn't it, Brady? Bit rich. The irony, we all felt that. And it's very good to have you on board, Reedy, because you couldn't have come at a better time, to be honest, because these two deserve some stories from you.
Well, I think the good thing about this soft cap being halved, Reedy, is that I'm no longer be able to pay you. So thank goodness that soft cap's been paid.
They've been trying to sack me for years, and now they've got me on, I don't know whether it's called over 70... on immunotherapy, chemotherapy. They've got me on extended sick pay with no pay, no money forever. That's my...
The reason hasn't changed for 50 years. It's still incompetence, Reedy.
Among you three, and I don't want to mention names, there's two of you that panic. And without breaking confidence, it's not you, Xavier. When you have kids, we're only among family, yes, and the family, but I don't want to break ethics, but with James and Jobe, when their kids were under 2 and Jobe still are, they only need to get the sinus fever, be drowsy. Has my kid got meningitis?
This is true.
Two of the most greatest players ever are pathetic with their own children.
Reid, on a serious note, how are you going? You've had your own health battles, and we've all been pushing for you. But how are you?
Look, I'm okay. I'm bloody lucky that I've got it at my age and not at say your age, Jobe, Tim, where you've got still 4 kids that you've got to either educate or help educate. I'd be stuffed. So I'm okay. How I got mesothelioma is stuff that I know in the first place. It's probably when we were building our house, and I just did this and that. But I was very lucky because it was really a bad one. It was malignant, but it did respond to immunotherapy. So instead of, most people die in 8 months or so, basically, I was sort of going beautifully. And about 7 weeks ago, it's just recurring slightly. So right now, I'm just having 12 weeks of continuing the immunotherapy, which is unbelievably helped me, and chemo, and it's holding it, and it's nothing like it was. So I'm just happy. I'm just happy to be alive. I'm missing medicine badly, because being at home, I've got to be like everyone else at the moment. But adding this to it, I miss the banter of the club, which you've retired, must miss desperately. But you miss that, like at the start of this, taking the mickey out of each other, and I really, really miss that, and I miss being a doctor, because at the moment doctors are really doing a great job, and I'm sitting at home on my arse, so I don't like that, because I'd rather be out there doing the bit.
And Reid, just a question on how is this COVID-19 affecting someone like yourself who has to go to a hospital for immunology treatment? How is that? Are you much more careful, or the hospital's more careful? Because they've still got to do their procedures with people like yourself while dealing with this. It must be a bit of a nightmare for you.
You get a bit. Look, hospitals are pretty smart, but this is a pretty smart virus too. So there's obviously a little incubation period where that nurse might talk to that nurse in the cafe, and not realise that they've got it. So there's always a danger. But look, I go in there and for half a day and every 3 weeks, and they fill you up with this sort of immunotherapy, which is great, with very few side effects, and then at the moment the chemo, which is a bit of a shit. So you're in there for about 5 or 6 hours. But no, I'm doing well, and I've got a good family, and the ex-players and players, they are so good to you, and the club's so good to you. I've been so lucky to be involved with Essendon Footy Club, and I would assume most clubs are the same, but our club, I can talk about, to me personally, when I got crook last year, and I didn't work that much. I came in a bit here and there because I was crook and not crook, and then I did really well. But they said to me, look, if you don't work one day, we're paying, and this is back in November, so the year's been going 1 month. They said, look, if you can work normally, we pay you your normal wage, and if you can't work at all, we pay you your normal wage. And I said, well, that's not right. I'm only meant to get 3 months. And they just said, no, we're paying you for the year. So when things were good, financially, I just got paid for the year, and they didn't need to do that. So I'm very, very grateful for that. Because
So you're the reason the club's got no money?
Well, yeah, because
I actually need to talk to you about that, Reid. Is pay it forward's probably come in pretty handy now, I think.
Hey, listen. I've got a picture of Purdy retiring. It was 2007. He earned 10
Can we cut him off now?
2018. 12 years ago.
Can we wish him goodbye?
That's all right. So how are you boys going? You going all right?
All going well, Reedy. Yeah, all going well. Just getting through self-isolation and making sure that healthy and happy and doing our best, and hopefully everyone's doing the same back at home.
Yeah, that's good. And what about the old man? How's Tim going? I hear him on the radio.
Yeah, no, he's in self-isolation as well. Mum's down at the farm, so Dad's pretty lonely actually. But I've got a niece who's had some lung issues, so we went. She moved down there with Mum probably 5 weeks ago, and has been down there since. So Dad's been by himself, which I think he's struggling without Mum's kind words to fill him in and look after him.
Bruce, thanks very much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll probably touch base with you again in a few weeks as we continue this new radio program.
Thanks, boys. Thanks, Harry.
Good on you, Reid.
Dr.
Thanks,
Bruce
Reid.
Reid, the Essendon Club Doctor royalty, also when it comes to the Essendon Footy Club. We're going to reflect back on a mighty moment next. You're listening to Working Through It with James Hird, Jobe Watson and Xavier Campbell.
James Hird got that ball out at the centre bounce. He's moving down towards this contest. If anybody's going to get it, it'll be James. McDougall heads for the boundary line. Maybe Murphy should have kicked. Bullen. Hird! Hird! The fairy tale's complete after a horror week. James Hird, you are a genius.
And then he went and hugged a fan. This is our nomination for the mighty moment, thanks to Coles Insurance. And Hirdy, before we sort of take this a little bit further, what was going through your mind that you would go and do such a thing?
Oh, just briefly, it was up until a few years ago. It was the worst week I'd had in footy for a long time. We'd played St Kilda the week before, and I'd gone on the football show and expressed my disappointment at Scott McLaren, and basically said that it was a disgrace as an umpire, which obviously was the wrong thing to do. And that was, I think, on the Wednesday night because it was Easter games, and by the Thursday morning, it was a media circus out the front of my house. And I remember calling Andrew Demetri on Good Friday to apologise. Rang him 4 or 5 times and finally got onto him. And when I spoke to him that afternoon, realised how serious my mistake was. He was very, very short and expressed that there was a good chance that I'd be deregistered for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So that was the Friday, and then going into, I think it was a Saturday night game against West Coast. And as captain, we hadn't won a game so far that year. And I was very conscious that as a player, as a captain, taking the focus off what the team's trying to do onto yourself is really, the wrong thing to do. So I think we kicked the first 6 goals of that game, then West Coast kicked the next 6. It was going backward and forward, and really, when I got the opportunity to have a shot for goal, I think Mark Bullen flicked the ball out to me in the forward pocket. And it was a shot that I practiced every training session at the end of training with a man called Colin Hooper, who used to kick the ball with me every night after training. So I probably had that shot, at training, over 1,000, 2,000 times in my training history. So I knew how to kick that ball, but when the ball went through, it was just a flood of emotion, and basically everything came out. And I think Drew was the supporter who was there, but basically just ran towards the fence and grabbed the closest person I could. Luckily, it wasn't a 90-year-old woman. I didn't break her in half, but it was a fine, fit young man, and it was a good moment. Fortunately, we went away and won the game, and I was able to apologise and only got fined $20,000 instead of being deregistered for 4 weeks.
Well, I'm not sure how old he is now, but he's a bit older than he was when you hugged him. But Drew Wilson actually does join us now on Working Through It. Drew Wilson, hello.
G'day there, boys. How we doing?
How do you remember? Oh, we're going well. How do you remember that day?
Yeah, so pretty much, as James explained, we're back and forth and with the lead. And then I said, I'm not one to get too emotional at the footy, like to reserve, but when he snagged that goal, it got better of me as well, and I've just jumped with all the emotion, and there he was, running at me.
Drew, how are you? Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to speak to you, James.
Sorry, Jobe, I jumped across here. What were you saying?
No. You go, Rudy.
Drew, it's interesting because Kevin Sheedy loves this story, right? Every sportsman's night, every talk I give, he tells this story, and he's made something up. He reckons there was a girl standing next to you, and then I've hugged you, and then I've turned away and left the girl stranded and didn't hug her at the same time. Was this girl with you, or is he making up this story, Sheeds?
No, Sheeds is on the money there. She was there watching the game with me, so you did leave her high and dry.
Yeah, he reckons I've left her high and dry. She's standing there with a disappointed face, but
he was a Collingwood supporter, so she just didn't deserve a hug anyway. Yes, exactly right.
And so, what are you doing now, Drew? What's where are you in your life, and how are you handling this self-isolation, the whole COVID-19?
Yeah, so still working. I'm an electrician these days. So so it hasn't affected me too much. More, I guess, I'm still involved at local footy, so unfortunately, that's been called off for now. So we're itching to get the boys back together to keep training. So it's sort of affecting us at local level, and just sort of not sure what to do these nights. Like last night meant to be at footy training, but not can't do that anymore.
Which football club?
Down at Greensboro Football Club. So I'm just doing some assistant coaching down there now. Then get a bit too old to keep playing. So putting a hand up to do some coaching.
Fantastic, Drew. Thanks for joining us and reliving your perspective of what is a famous Essendon moment. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you much, boys.
Thanks, Drew.
All right,
Thanks, Drew.
So that's our Coles Insurance Mighty Moment that we've come up with. If you've got your own that you want to sort of bring to the table, the best thing to do is to get in straight in touch with the club. You can do that via email, Facebook, or even through Twitter, and we will take one of your suggestions and reminisce next week with a different moment. Before we go, we've gone over time, but we're obviously having so much fun. A final observation or a final moment, a final thought. We might start with you, Joe. A final thought for the first episode.
Yeah, well, I think that Herdy touched on at the beginning. It was, the idea and the point of this is for us to do something to say thank you to the Essendon community for everything that they've done. My family's been involved with the club for such a long period of time, and we really just wanted to provide an opportunity to connect with supporters and fans. To say thank you, to hear some stories, and to provide hopefully some entertainment to them, to get everyone through this hard time. And I'm certainly going to really enjoy connecting with people and discussing footy and footy topics and with these two guys. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and we hope that people it can brighten their days and give them something happy to think about.
Herdy?
Yeah, well said, Jobe. I think that's the overriding factor for both of us is to say thank you to the Essendon community who have supported us for through thick and thin for so long. But the thing that I first contacted Xavier about was how do we get the Essendon family to help each other? And it hasn't probably worked today in terms of these Coles gift vouchers just yet, but we'll work out a way to do it. But one thing that I think that we're trying to do is if there are people out there in the community, not just Essendon supporters, but Essendon supporters who know someone who needs a hand with either a food drop or something, and we're able to do it within the confines of the rules, the self-isolation rules, let us know. Email us, let us know, ring in, because there are I don't know how many ex-players there are, Jobe, that you and I have both played with who are sitting around not doing a lot, but they'd love to help. They'd love to actually reciprocate or sort of turn the favour on its head. You guys came to watch us for so long. How can we help you? How can we drop some food off to you? And I know there's a lot of my teammates, a lot of Jobe's teammates who are sitting there listening to the show, waiting for an opportunity to help the supporters that have helped them for so long. So that's one of the things that we'll try and evolve and develop as this show goes on.
Yeah, and I'm sure the club will work out the best way to get in touch, and we'll try and connect as many people as possible as this show continues. Xavier, you've got the last word, and I know there's something pretty significant you want to mention.
Yeah, thanks, Whitey. Thanks, Jim and Joe. It's been a good platform for us to get together, obviously, and it's only going to build over the next few weeks. But in the last couple of weeks, obviously, we had the passing of an absolute legend, one of the nicest people I've met in my entire life, and he just was a person that just personified everything you want from an Essendon player, person, administrator, footballer, and Jack Jones. And Jack's a 3-time premiership player. Obviously, he wore the number 24 from when he served Papua New Guinea, the 24th Battalion. I think Tim Watson described him really well, where he sort of was responsible for, he was the bridge that connected the old Essendon and the new Essendon, and I saw that so often. And a lot of people probably publicly, our fans probably saw him around Anzac Day. He would always tell his stories about what it meant to him and provide a lot of context to us on such an important day and why we were so privileged to play on that day. But he did so much more behind the scenes in the footy club. He was just a true gentleman. He was incredibly popular. I'm not sure you'd be hard pressed to find a more popular person inside the four walls of our football club than Jack. And we're wishing Tony and John and the rest of the kids, and obviously Sarah as his granddaughter, who we know well, giving them our best wishes and telling them we're thinking of them. And I think we've got an audio tribute from Sarah that was played on Fox last week as well, which we're going to air now.
Yep, let's hear this. A terrific package that Sarah put together on Fox Footy, and thanks to Fox Footy, here it is now.
My beloved grandfather, Jack Jones, has left us after 95 years and 4 months. Pop counted the months, he was just like that. And he certainly made his time on earth count. He was one of my greatest supporters, and my daughters adored him. His favourite game involved stealing their pancakes when they weren't looking. He had the most incredible sweet tooth. They called him Old Pop.
I got your nose. No. Put him back again.
As they grow up, I'll tell them about the wonderful life he led. Pop was a great storyteller. I loved hearing about the time he climbed on his roof in Ascot Vale to watch Farlap win the 1930 Melbourne Cup, and how he met my nan at a dance, a stone's throw from Windy Hill, and then asked to write to her while he went off to war. He missed games due to malaria when he got back. It's unbelievable, really. Stories about working as a butcher during the week and then wearing the red and black on the weekend. He once fell on top of his younger brother chasing a footy over the boundary at the MCG, back when fans were allowed to sit inside the fence. He was right next to John Coleman when the great full forward did his knee. Coleman telling Pop, "I've got it, Jonah," as he flew in the marking contest. Pop was sentimental. He asked to wear the number 24 in honour of his battalion when he arrived at Windy Hill. And he loved that I, his first grandchild, was born on the 24th and got married on the 24th. He was the last to leave the dance floor at my wedding. On one of his final trips, he went to see his great-grandchild Willow's first day of school in Ascot Vale, across the road from the house he was born in, 90 years to the day after he started at the very same school. Pop was a gentleman. He was never late and never underdressed. Dermot Brereton used to tell me he reminded him of Cary Grant, dashing and distinguished. Pop loved the footy industry. He loved being fussed over by the staff at the Bombers, and he loved ordering me to tell someone he said to say hello. No doubt he'll be glued to Fox Footy in heaven. Pop was born in the Bombers' heartland, and he leaves us in Bombers' hearts.
So that was Fox Footy, Sarah Jones, and a tribute to her grandfather, Jack Jones, a Bomber legend. Joe Watson, James Hird, Xavier Campbell. That's it. We were meant to go maybe 45, 50 minutes, maybe an hour. It's nearly about 3 hours, I think. But I think a lot of Essendon fans would have had a lot of fun listening into you guys do your thing.
Whitey, can I just say thank
Whitey.
you to everyone involved, and thank you. And also a quick shout-out to Susie up in Blackwood, Jobe. I know she'd be up there listening, and I think we're all shouting out. She's no longer at the Essendon Footy Club, but we're all thinking of her.
Yeah. And also to the Hibbard family as well, Hirdy. Michael was a good teammate, and he's going through a very difficult time as well, so thinking of him.
All right,
Absolutely.
Terrific, guys. Nice way to finish the program as we do all look after each other through this challenging time, as I said at the top. Hopefully we'll do it all again next week, guys. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Well done.
Joe Watson, James Hird, and also Xavier Campbell. For those that came into this a little late, I also know there's been a few technical issues for those who've just been overwhelmed, I think, with the volume of people wanting to listen to this first episode. We're going to put on replay. So on the Essendon website, jump on and have a listen if you didn't catch all of it. We'll have that up very, very shortly. We'll catch you again next week.